by building it in the process.
You know, it just, and the questions that were posed about that seem so individual, like so individualized, you know, choice to know, facing death, hope, rather than a sense of collectivity.
So a sense of collectivity is underpinning everything I'm talking about.
Yeah, okay. But anyway, let me just stop there and, yeah.
But I'll say this in response to the first part of what you said. A good friend of mine, a philosopher, talks about one of his colleagues recently somehow got religion in a very powerful way. This is in the philosophy department at the University in Chicago. And got religion in a very powerful way, talking about hope and talking about personal hope. And my friend, commenting on his colleague, said he always thought that religion makes bad people a lot worse. It may make good people better. Why good people better? That's because I would argue with that. But he was saying good people better. Religion makes good people better. He would probably point to someone like Desmond Tutu from South Africa, for whom a belief in God was intimately connected with the belief in the struggle for liberation. Well, a belief in something beyond yourself that sustains you and gives you hope is the great forward. Modern hope has primarily been collective hope. Hope that the world is getting better, or hope that we can make the world better in some sort of collective way. Social hope. And if you think about it, I would argue this, that if you ask the question, what may I hope in my life, and you answer it only individually, there's a kind of despairing element in that. Because what you're doing is setting yourself off from your larger situation, your larger environment. Now, I'm back to Tutu and back to what makes good people better. It seems to me that if you look in South Africa, and I spend a lot of time personally in South Africa, and in the chapter on hope, it is centered on South Africa. I talk about hope without God, hope in a collective struggle to make the world better. And I ask, what are the elements of hope? If you look at it in secular terms, you're not waiting for a transcendent force to deliver you. Well, one of the facts is people just acting collectively. In South Africa, saying we'll organize ourselves to fight this. We organize to fight it, to resist. And creating then institutions to sustain themselves and each other and support. But along with that are at least two other dimensions. One is the moral sense. Tutu represents this, but so did Joe Slovo of the South African Communist Party. That we are fighting together for a better world, and that we are doing the right thing. And that sense of doing the right thing for secularists is really essential. It need not be the right thing as given to us by a superior power at all. But there is a sense that if you look at South Africa, there's a sense of belonging, not just South Africans, black and white, fighting against apartheid, but South Africans, black and white, connecting themselves with what was going on in the world around them. They connected themselves with the United Nations Human Rights Declaration, not just as an abstract document, but the fact that human rights had been achieved and were being achieved elsewhere in the world, and they were part of a historical current that was making the world better. This was not progress unfolding. This was people acting as part of something wider. And that historical current went back in time and involved people, generations, passing the baton to other generations. The baton of human rights and human dignity from slavery forward. So that each generation Absolutely, every generation, all the time. But generations seem to take the baton from previous generations and continue to push the process of humans living better, being treated with more dignity, treating themselves with dignity, undoing oppressive relations. For me, this is hope. But it's not just hope in a sort of totally individualist, abstract way. It's hope that involves joining yourself with a larger struggle. Now, I know, the struggle may not be going on at this moment. We can feel cynical, we can feel burned out, we can feel tired. But has that struggle gone on in human history? You betcha. Will it continue? You betcha. Is it going to spread to women who are oppressed elsewhere in the world because women and other? Yes. And working people and people who are being oppressed by dictatorships? Yes, yes, yes. The Statue of Liberty in Tiananmen Square meant something. That was not just sort of somebody's fantasy. It was taking from one culture to another and saying, they are giving us an inspiration and a goad. Back to Camus for a moment. Is the world without God absurd and meaningless, and are we isolated individuals? What I'm saying is no, not at all. And I'm saying there is a rich and complex and powerful set of meanings that are historical. And I think we only have to look around and make them our own. So that's the...
Yeah, but that happened with God and without God. I mean...
Exactly, exactly. And I'm saying, but with God, it means something very different. With God, you're lodging it in a transcendent power who gives it its meaning, from whom you take that meaning. Without God, you can say, this is who, not just who I am, this is who we are as human beings. And we know that human beings can be exploited and oppressed and subjected to all sorts of pains and torments. We know also that human beings can struggle to make the world better, have struggled to make the world better, will continue to struggle, and that we can choose to make that our meaning. So the question of meaning of history, well, I don't think it's there, flat, waiting for us. It's something we decide to join up with. Another question. Yes.
Regarding knowledge, Richard Feynman said that, well, you know, if it would be to summarize the best knowledge there is in the world in 40 words, he would. He said something about the atomic theory, that, you know, the world is made of atoms and blah blah blah. So what would be your top?
I've been good in 40 words.
Top knowledge thing, or top 3, or top 5? Because you said some people choose not to know.
You can hear that what I'm adding to science and reason is history and a certain sense of human history. A sense of human history as a struggle to make the world a better place and a struggle for human dignity. But also a historical sense of the natural world as having evolved over millions and billions of years. And I think it's vitally important that we see and experience ourselves as part of that natural world. That would be where I would begin.
Well, it's, humanists and atheists, which I'm one, are always talking about science, reason. Well, what about the arts? You know, that's an important part of human life. And what part does it play, or do they play? Like music, art, film, all of them.
Yep.
We choose not to enter into those fields, or to enter into those fields.
I'm sorry, we choose.
We choose not to do those things, or to do those
Yes.
things.
Yes.
But they're pretty important.
They're vitally important. They're absolutely important.
So why don't we hear
But,
what you
but here, one of the problems, I will say this, and it connects with my answer to the last question. Humanists and atheists and agnostics and secularists, of which I am one, of each of those, I suppose.